witnessed over 200 Afghans going over the Milak border. Is something like this sustainable without the palpable support of the international community? Well, absolutely not.
What happens to a country stuck in endless conflict for over 50 years? Afghanistan is the perfect example. For nearly half a century, this country has been the first to pop in anyone's minds when they hear violence and warfare, bringing in the world's superpowers in the process. Back in the 1980s, the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, marking the beginning of a decade-long conflict. The 1990s weren't any better, with the devastating civil war tearing the country apart. Then came the American invasion in the 2000s and 2010s, continuing the cycle of violence. Fast forward to the summer of 2021, and the story takes another dramatic turn. As the United States began its withdrawal, the world watched in disbelief as the Taliban swiftly reclaimed control. In just 3 months, the US-backed Afghan Republic crumbled, and the Taliban re-established their Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. By the end of the year, it was evident that America's efforts at nation-building had failed, much like the Soviets before them. But does the Taliban's return to power mean the end of Afghanistan's troubles? Not at all. So, what does the future hold? With the Taliban back in control, the conflict isn't just history. It's an ongoing reality shaping Afghanistan's present and future. The instability is far from over. So, what's really happening in Afghanistan after the Taliban took over? They've been working hard to solidify their control, but it hasn't been a walk in the park. Almost immediately, the United States and other international donors cut off nearly all their foreign aid, which was $8 billion a year. This aid made up about 40% of Afghanistan's entire GDP. Imagine losing almost half of your country's income overnight. Most of Afghanistan's $9 billion in foreign exchange reserves were held in New York City, and the US government froze these assets as soon as the Taliban regained control. Afghanistan was also cut off from the Western financial system, and most Taliban leaders were already under strict US financial sanctions. The result? Afghanistan's already stunning economy nosedived even further. For 2 decades, the US poured billions into Afghanistan. But with that support gone, the Taliban now faces the difficult task of finding new sources of external funding to jumpstart the economy. This is no easy feat because, well, they're the Taliban. Since taking power, they've aggressively suppressed the rights of women and girls, much like they did in the 1990s. Following the US withdrawal in 2021, the Taliban acquired about $7.1 billion worth of military equipment left behind. This included about 600,000 weapons, 300 aircraft, over 880,000 vehicles, and advanced equipment like night vision goggles and biometric systems. Although maintenance and spare parts are challenging, this equipment has made the Taliban one of the most heavily armed extremist organizations in history. They've begun smuggling significant volumes of these arms to other extremist organizations, creating a new income source. Some US equipment left in Afghanistan has been traced to militants in Kashmir and groups like Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Historically, the Taliban's largest revenue source was their dominance over the global opium and heroin trade. Afghanistan's dry climate and landlocked, monstrous terrain make conventional agriculture difficult. However, the opium poppy thrives in dry climates, doesn't spoil on long journeys, and sells for a high price. But the Taliban isn't just sitting on their hands. They're moving into meth production. Meth can be made from ephedra, which grows wild in Afghanistan, but natural ephedra isn't very efficient. Instead, they're switching to chemical meth production, which is cheaper and more profitable. Recently, Iran seized a massive shipment of Afghan meth, and that's just the beginning. The Taliban wants Afghanistan to be the new meth hub. In addition to drugs, the Taliban is tapping into Afghanistan's mineral wealth. They have over $1 trillion in untapped resources like gold, lithium, and copper. Since they lack the resources to mine these themselves, they've partnered with Chinese companies. China is all in, seeing Afghanistan as a key piece in their Belt and Road Initiative, and they don't ask many questions about the Taliban's governance. Meanwhile, ISIS-K, the Afghan branch of ISIS, is trying to overthrow the Taliban. Unlike the Taliban, who are focused on consolidating power in Afghanistan, ISIS-K dreams of a global caliphate. They've been fighting the Taliban and trying to expand their influence, despite having fewer fighters, around 6,000 compared to the Taliban's 80,000. As you can imagine, the situation is anything but stable. As ISIS-K grows and continues its insurgency, the Taliban is forced to switch from being insurgents themselves to counterinsurgents. ISIS-K's goal is to unite Tajik lands across Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan under their control. They plan to continue attacks to undermine the Taliban and recruit more fighters. If successful, ISIS-K could challenge the Taliban for control of Afghanistan, potentially leading to broader conflicts in the region. Pakistan's intelligence agency supported the Afghan Taliban by providing funding and sanctuary, hoping that once in power, they would suppress the Pakistani Taliban and cooperate with Pakistan against India. However, the Afghan Taliban did the opposite. During the Soviet era, extensive water diversion projects like the Karakum Canal redirected vast amounts of water from the Amu Darya to irrigate Turkmenistan's cotton fields and supply Ashgabat with water. Uzbekistan also heavily utilized the river for its agricultural needs, making both countries major cotton producers, but severely impacting the Aral Sea, which has drastically shrunk over decades. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Central Asian states relied on old Soviet treaties for water sharing, which excluded Afghanistan. The Taliban's recent construction of the Kosh-Tepa Canal, spanning about 177 miles from the Tajikistan-Afghanistan border, aims to irrigate 550,000 hectares of desert land. This ambitious project threatens Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, which rely heavily on the Amu Darya for agriculture and drinking water. With no international treaties in place involving Afghanistan, these countries face a critical water crisis if the Taliban's canal reduces downstream water flows by half. The situation poses a grave challenge. In just 3 months, the Taliban raced across Afghanistan, beating their opponents easily. People around the world couldn't believe it when the Afghan president ran away, and scared citizens grabbed onto planes leaving Kabul airport. It was like what happened in Saigon years. As things calmed down in the Taliban-run Afghanistan, everyone wondered what was next for this part of the world. Is Afghanistan on the brink of war with its neighbors? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit that like button and subscribe for more engaging content. See you in the next one.